Let's move on to Iran now, and let's talk about what happened over there. So there appears to have been a strike. I'll let you decide, and maybe we'll tell you about who exactly that strike was after we show you the video, that happened on an ammo depot and on facilities that were manufacturing kamikaze drones inside of Iran. Many of these drones currently have been shipped over to Russia, who have been using them on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. So let's play some of the video here. I'm going to talk a little bit over it. You can see somebody who is filming, and then a massive boom and a flash that happened. We don't have any information right now in terms of the exact munition that hit that facility, but there were several strikes that happened all across Iran on these facilities. And let's put this up there on the screen. Iran is saying that this is a drone attack that targeted its defense facility, and that bomb-carrying drones targeted the Iranian defense factory in the central city overnight, causing some damage at the plant amid heightened regional international tensions. Much of this, again, is coming after the provision of these drones and of military equipment to Russia, which has spawned a lot of discussion here in Washington about how we have to get much tougher on Iran because now they're in the fight against Ukraine. Well, it turns out, probably not a surprise, let's put this up there on the screen, that the Israeli government appears to be the one that conducted the strike, likely at the behest of the United States. Israeli and American officials discussing new ways to combat Iranian operations. Wall Street Journal has no qualms here, even though Israel is not taking credit for the strike. They are directly attributing it to them, saying Israel strikes Iran amid international push to contain Tehran. This was a drone strike targeting the defense compound as, quote, the U.S. and Israel look for new ways to contain Tehran's nuclear and military ambitions. I also don't think it's a coincidence that Bibi just happens to be back in the government and something like this happens. And also, he's got a where Bibi is the centrist guy right now in Israel in terms of who is ruling Israel. So just so everybody knows about that and who exactly is calling for more posturing on Iran.
It is probably the most hawkish far-right government in Israeli history. I mean, he is, in terms of who he brought into his cabinet and positions of power, I mean, these are some really fringe characters with views that were outside of the mainstream until very, very recently. He formed a coalition with these extraordinarily hardline far-right parties. So, yeah, there's no surprise, not an accident that Bibi's back in charge, and this is the kind of thing you get.
Also, just so everybody knows, maybe this has something to do with it or not. The CIA director, William Burns, actually made an unannounced trip to Israel just last week to discuss Iran and other regional issues. A week later, we have a drone strike by Israel. Again, not even being questioned, really, about what's happening here. And just last week, actually, the U.S. and Israel carried out their largest ever joint military exercise from both countries for air defense systems, refueling jet planes, and others, and the potential for a military conflict with Iran. Now, hopefully, this does not escalate into anything, but I think it is very clear that this is also, Bibi is in a tough spot. Israel wants good relations with Russia. I should just note, it is the only Western nation in the entire world which has not undergone significant criticism for saying no to 98% of requests to Ukraine, including refusing to provide Iron Dome, including refusing ammunition, missiles. So I think Bibi probably, first of all, is never a bad thing for Israeli politics to strike Iran. All right, unless you get into a broader thing, but that's not where we're at right now. So probably helps him, helps his coalition, helps his government, something he personally believes in. Number two, this is how you get the West off your back. You're like, hey, I'll do you a favor. I'll strike the drone facility, and I'll go after Russia. It's like a two birds with one stone. While he's refusing to actually provide a lot of military aid to Ukraine, people don't know this, but you know, a lot of Russians actually live in Israel. People who left during the Soviet, I think it's like 1/8 or something of the population. So how they feel towards Russia is much more complicated than basically any other nation.
And Bibi has had very friendly relations with Putin. And, you know, it was like there were like posters up of him and Trump and Putin together. And so, I mean, this is part of his sort of political identity. And he has, even since the last government, he has struck a more sort of hands-off approach towards the Russia-Ukraine war. So, yeah, this is a good way for him to both signal for his domestic base and posture in the hawkish way that he wants to with an increasingly hawkish Israeli domestic populace, but also pretend like with the U.S., like he's on our side in terms of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It was put well by one expert here, quoted it at a Washington-based think tank critical of Iran. They said, this is a smart trifecta where Israel can hurt Iran, help Ukraine, not risk its strategic interests in Syria, or run the risk of the diversion of its sensitive military technology to Russia and into Iran. I just have to point out the hypocrisy here when, you know, we're risking World War III to back Ukraine over the principle of territorial sovereignty. That's the principle that's at stake in Ukraine that we are willing to risk World War III over. And then our, you know, buddies in Israel, probably at our behest, are striking Iranian territory, and for some reason that's not a violation of territory. That's all fine and good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is just a blatant hypocrisy here in terms of the way we approach these supposedly ironclad international rules and norms.
Yeah. The last thing that this country needs is a war, another war in the Middle East.
And
controversial statement.
And the final piece to put on this is, of course, the Obama administration, they struck the nuclear deal with Iran, which seemed to be working pretty well. Trump backs out of it. Biden could have gotten back in, as Trita Parsi many times came on the show and talked about. The window of opportunity was right at the beginning of the Biden administration. They could have just gotten back in. They didn't do that. And now that deal is basically off the table. And instead, we have actions with our close allies in Israel, you know, once again, putting war on the table and risking war with yet another country around the world. So it really is a dramatic failure and failing of the Biden administration here ultimately and how they've handled this situation.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.